Welcome to the Lakeland Community Podcast, a collaboration between Lakeland Media and the Lakeland Business Department.
So hello and welcome to the newest edition of the Lakeland Community Podcast. I'm Noelle Lewis and I'm here with Melissa Porcelli from Parties by Porcelli, and we're super excited for today. I actually have the pleasure of interning at Parties by Porcelli, so this is going to be a lot of fun. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the background of Parties by Porcelli, like just how the company started and everything like that?
Sure. We started a little over 5 years ago. I had been always, my husband and I, who's my partner, has always been involved in the event industry in some way, whether it was bartending, doing event staffing. I promoted for a lot of bars and clubs when I was younger. So we'd always been in different facets of it. I loved planning my kids' birthday parties, always coming up with like really kind of crazy DIY stuff. And then I had been working corporate for a long time. I was pregnant with my third child, and I ended up having a lot of difficulty in my pregnancy, and I was put out on bed rest. And I almost died, the baby almost died. It was really, really traumatic. So we knew I wasn't gonna be going back to work in the corporate world for a while. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I was laid off. I was told they couldn't extend my medical leave anymore, which at the time I was devastated.
Right.
But I am a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. So we had previously purchased just like a cheap tent off Amazon. And we used to throw a big 4th of July party every year. And we'd
I remember you telling me about this.
Yes. So we'd have like over 100 people, and we had called a rental company and asked to rent some tables and chairs, and they gave us a price for delivery that was just way more money than we could afford, and I was shocked. And the company actually told us that they don't like to deliver to Ringwood because it's just so out of the way and hard to get to. So for a couple of years, everyone would bring their own tables and chairs, and it was just a thrown together party. And it was always such a great time. But as the party grew more and more, and the weather was just always so unpredictable, that's when we had bought our own tent. That tent ended up being circulated throughout our neighborhood all the time.
Funny.
So people would call John and say, hey, John, do you think I could borrow the tent? It's my daughter's graduation party, or we have a communion next week. Do you think we could just borrow it? Or we'll even pay you to set it up. And he was just going out and just doing it for friends and family. And then once I got laid off, I will never forget, we were sitting in our living room and watching TV, and he's doing something on his phone, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, I'm looking up tents. And I'm like, why? We have one. And he's like, no, commercial tents. And we had talked previously about possibly doing something like this, and it was just never the right time. And then when I got laid off, it was really the push to do it. So we started in March of, I think, 2018 or 2019, and we have been going strong ever since. I feel blessed to be able to do something that I love every day.
Yeah.
So that's how Parties by Porcelli got started.
Is it like difficult to work with family, like as a business, or do you feel like you guys like work well together in it?
So it's it definitely can be a strain on a marriage or any type of relationship. Luckily, John and I work together really, really well. We complement each other well. So he's super handy, has a very different skill set from me. I went to school, I have my MBA, post-MBA degrees. So I've taken all the business classes before. and in my corporate experience had used a lot of that. So I was able to apply that to my side of the business. So we both kind of stay in our own lanes.
Right. Like I was going to say, you guys do like totally different things, but it like all
Yes.
comes together in the end.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I definitely couldn't ask for a better business partner than John. He keeps me on my toes for sure. He lets me know when I make mistakes, and we work together to try and figure out how to solve those problems and prevent them from happening again.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I'm really, really lucky.
Yeah.
We don't always agree, but for the most part, we do.
And then obviously, like being in Ringwood and like this area, community is a really big thing. So how do you feel like community is like important towards your business?
Sure. So community, first of all, Ringwood is an amazing community to both live and work in. We are just blessed. Most of our workers are actually from the local area. So we have a lot of employees from, I think all of our employees except for one are all Ringwood, Wanacue, or Haskell, born and raised, really. We always, as a business, try and support other community businesses. I'm actually on the board for the Ringwood Chamber of Commerce. So we're very community focused, small business focused. So most of all of our marketing materials, like our t-shirts, our signs, our insurance agent, they're all small local businesses like ourselves. We always try and recommend other vendors in the community. So for example, I received a phone call today, and a woman had gotten my number from the Ringwood Library.
Okay.
Our friends at the Ringwood Library. And the woman called and said, hey, my daughter's having a birthday party. I don't actually need your services, but I was wondering if you'd be able to recommend a face painter and a balloon artist.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
I said, yeah. I'm like, we actually have a ton of people. So, and both of them are located right in Ringwood. So I was able to give out their numbers. So even things like the local Facebook pages, like the Ringwood and Wanacue Mom pages, have been great. I mean, the community's really rallied around us. And whenever someone says, does anyone have a recommendation of where I could get a tent or an inflatable? We're always recommended on there a bunch of times, and it gives us such a great feeling.
And then do you feel like your business has changed a lot in the past 5 years, like from when you started to now?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember our first tent that we got was a 20 by 20, and I was so nervous about it going out. And we had, it was funny, so our first customer was someone who saw our truck leaving the church parking lot.
Okay.
And they were like, oh my gosh, are you located here? Like, where are you? I've never heard of you. I said, we actually just started a couple weeks ago. And they're like, we need tables and chairs for my daughter's communion. We have our own tent, but we need tables and chairs. And I said, okay, like we could do that. And I remember still like trying to figure out like our rental agreement.
Yeah.
And I was just so nervous about everything. And it was the morning of the communion. We had gotten them everything they needed. They were really happy. They had their own tent. They were using like a pop-up tent. And the wife calls me and she's like, Melissa, I need your help. It's an emergency. And I said, what's going on? And she said, our tent collapsed last night in the rain. And I said, oh my gosh, what do you do? And she's like, well, I was hoping you would tell me. And I was like, oh yeah. So John ended up leaving by himself, and he went and got this tent set up. And we got such a glowing review from it. It was amazing. And I remember thinking that was like a big problem to us back then. And now, I mean, we have probably 25 tents, 10 inflatables. We do the foam parties, dance floors, stages, bars.
And like 10 events a weekend.
Oh, it's closer to 20 events a weekend. But every year that we've been in business has been a different kind of struggle. And we've learned to overcome those struggles. And the problems we had in the past just seem so minute now.
Yeah.
So we've definitely grown we've been continuing to keep growing, but we're choosing to go the slow and steady route for that.
Right. And then do you feel like COVID and the whole pandemic, like how did that affect your whole business?
Wow. So COVID definitely threw us for a loop. We were lucky. We were actually in a great position for it because we were still a smaller company. And really at the time, it was just myself, John, and we had one other employee. So we didn't have to worry really about, continuing to pay people. When we shut down, we had to think strategically because we were shut down. I mean, there was no gathering, there were no parties.
There was no way for you guys to set up and like do anything pretty much.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So in the very beginning, I mean, we were like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get through this? So luckily, we were able to pivot a little bit. Mm-hmm. So some of the things we did were giving back is like a huge part of what our business is. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorite things about being a business owner is being able to give back. So we started by doing tents for the first responders so that they could go and get COVID tested. So that was like one of the big things that we did. We got into the yard signs, your favorite.
Yes.
The yard signs. So it would be like, happy 3rd birthday, Johnny, with soccer balls and kind of customized towards the birthday child. Because at that point, they were doing the parades.
Yeah, I feel like if you lived in Ringwood or like Wanacue or Haskell during COVID, like the yard signs.
Yes.
Like, the Parties by Porcelli yard signs.
Yes. So that was kind of what kept us afloat, kept us being able to pay our bills. I mean, they were so popular for a long time. But some of the other things that we got into were helping some of the local businesses. So once they were beginning to be able to open up a little bit more and there was the outdoor dining, we started working with local businesses and kind of designing custom setups for each business as to how they could do social distance seating. We also worked with a local janitorial supply company, and we were able to actually get a lot of antibacterial and disinfectants. And we wrote up instructions and we'd give them to the town and say, hey, this is what we found, can you use this? So we did a lot of relationship building during COVID, which came back to us tenfold. Yeah. I mean, we were doing different signs for like the hospitals, of like supporting their workers, and it was a crazy time. But then once it started opening up a little bit more, we started doing micro weddings. Right. So when you could only have 10 people at your wedding, of course, the bride is totally disappointed. That was probably the most I've ever spoken to fathers of the bride ever. Was during COVID. Fathers of the bride never call us for anything ever. And they would call and they'd say, my daughter was supposed to get married at such and such place, and we can't do it anymore, but she still wants to get married. Help me. So they'd be like, I don't even care what it costs. I just want my little girl to have her special day. So we would do these small 20 by 20 tents with every accessory that we had. And they were beautiful. And we got such great feedback about it. And that's when a lot of people are doing like FaceTiming at their wedding. So they'd provide a link. So it was really cool. Very different from the weddings that we do now, but definitely a more intimate, special gathering. So not anymore though. Now everyone's like, right after COVID, it was like full blown parties. Yeah. So very different.
Like some of the events that I've gone to, like to take pictures, are like insane, like huge, hundreds of people and like 5 tents at once. And
the Ragnar event, that was a really fun one.
And then what is your relationship with like Lakeland and like the Lakeland community?
Sure. So I think we have 5 Lakeland seniors working for us right now. Shout out to the Lakeland seniors. We obviously, this is our second year participating in the Lakeland internship program, which has been amazing. Between having you and Hannah, it's great. So Hannah was obviously our intern last year, who's now working for us as well. Whenever she comes home, she works for us, and then we're actually getting her a laptop so she can work remotely.
That's awesome.
When she goes back to school in the fall. So we do a lot with the different sports teams. We actually have quite a few Lakeland teachers who are clients of ours.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yep. Actually, our team might be at one of their houses right now. So I'm amazed by Lakeland, and all the programs like this is just spectacular. So to see, all the improvements and what Lakeland can offer has been great. And we definitely want to continue with being able to hire local students and doing mentorships. That's always been very important to me. I have many, many mentors.
Yeah.
So I feel it's important to be able to give back. I have mentors both inside the industry and outside of the industry. So it's always important to pass on your knowledge, whether it's teaching how to write out a check or address an envelope.
Yeah.
To more in depth. We actually work with a lot of inflatable companies throughout New Jersey, helping educate them on proper bounce
Well, there's a
house
lot that I did
instructions.
not know about, New Jersey's bounce house laws and everything. Because you said New Jersey's one of the strictest states for bounce house rentals.
It is. New Jersey is one of the strictest states, not only with bounce house rentals, but for tents as well. For inflatables, we're only allowed to buy from approved manufacturers, and only certain units within those manufacturers are approved. Then we fill out a ton of paperwork. We pay a lot of money, and then they come and they inspect. We have to blow up the inflatables, and they come and they inspect them, and they issue a permit. And those are the only inflatables that are allowed to be used in the state of New Jersey.
And I'm sure you can get in a lot of trouble if companies go around that or whatever. So
Yeah, and unfortunately there are a lot that do.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons our insurance is so high, is because there are so many companies that are out there that are not doing the right things. If you see on Facebook Marketplace, the majority of the time those companies are not legit companies. They don't have insurance. And you see in their pictures, the inflatables aren't even weighted down or staked.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly dangerous. We actually get trained on the inflatables and how to set them up, and we always work very closely with the manufacturers, even offering things like feedback as to how to make them better. We work with the state as well, with kind of informing them on what's going on and what we're seeing, kind of boots on the ground.
Right.
And tents too. I mean, tents is a totally different animal from the inflatables. I always said I'd never get into inflatables. Yet here we are.
Yes. 10 inflatables later.
Yeah. With the tents, some of the rules and regulations surrounding them is just really difficult. For instance, when you have to have an exit sign on an open tent.
Right.
So, you just walk 10 feet that way or that way or that way or that way. You don't need an exit sign for that. But, that's something that the state requires of us. We're the rule followers, I feel
you guys
of the
definitely
companies.
are very.
Not everyone is like that, but all the good companies that we work with, a lot of companies too.
Yeah.
So, for example, there's companies that if you call last minute and you're looking for a tent and we don't have anything available, we'll tell you who to go to with other reputable companies.
Where they're going to make sure everything's done right. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I hate seeing collapsed tents, which we see frequently. John always takes pictures of them and sends them to me when he's driving around. So, you just got to be careful with doing it. And if it's done the right way, then everything should be okay.
And then what are your goals for the future? Where do you see
Oh boy,
going?
that's a loaded question. So I think John's going to divorce me if I buy too much more.
Carnival games?
Oh no, that was the worst. So when I bought, I don't even know,
Like
32,
35
32 carnival
games.
games, which are all going out, by the way. We're doing quite a few carnivals for the schools. I'd like to get more into dishes, utensils, glassware. Right now, so we just moved warehouses,
Right.
so we more than doubled our square footage for the warehouse. Still not enough.
Yeah.
We're locked in right now to a 3-year lease, but then after that, we've got to look for a bigger space. We need more flexibility with some things, like having a commercial dishwasher to be able to have the tableware.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely one avenue we want to go in. We are exploring bigger tents. And the one thing that John actually wants to buy right now that I'm saying no to is a mechanical bull.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, definitely fun, but probably a liability.
So I think my insurance guy would probably not be happy about that.
Yeah.
I still remember when I got the 17-foot water slide.
Right.
And I took a picture of it and I sent it to him, and he was like, "Are you serious? That thing is huge." So definitely there's a bunch of different ways that we could go as a business and trying to navigate where the economy's going, where the political climate's going, and even like on the very local level, what things are going to look like 5-10 years from now.
Right.
Those are all things that we have to consider, even the price of warehouse space.
Yeah.
So that's through the roof. The availability of warehouse space.
I was going to say, isn't
really
availability really hard to like find, especially for what you guys are going to need within
hard.
the
Right.
next years?
Yeah. So we definitely have some ideas. This year, we're trying to just regroup and see where things go. We definitely need to expand, but we want to make sure that we have the right people. People to us is huge,
Right.
in place to be able to support us with our growth. So right now we're going to do slow and steady. Keep it the same for probably another year or so,
Yeah.
and then just see where things take us. I think a lot of it happens organically too. Typically, if someone calls and asks for something 4 times, except for if it's a mechanical bull, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
So the more people ask for things, the more likely we are to get them.
And I also think, like with what you were saying about the people around you, like all the boys who work for you, like they recommend their friends because they like working for you, and they like think their friends would also like working for you, and it's like a whole friend group that just like works for you now.
I know, it's pretty amazing. And we've also had a lot of siblings that work for us. So it makes us feel really good. I've had great bosses and I've had terrible bosses. And I want to be able to provide like that positive work experience for people. And as you know, even with the high schoolers, we take interviewing seriously, well, for the most part.
Yes.
As casual as we are, we expect when we interview for people to show up dressed appropriately and shake our hands when they meet us. But, you know, we are very family friendly.
Yeah.
We're very flexible and understanding.
Very flexible.
We know it's Memorial Day weekend coming up, so all the seniors are going down to the shore. We get it, and we really do try and accommodate it as much as we can. We know, like, things with prom and, you know, different things come up, and for our employees that have families, we understand kids get sick. Things happen, and that's one of my favorite things about owning my business is having that flexibility.
Why people definitely like love working for you and recommend people working for you because of all of that stuff too.
We have really lucked out with all our employees. I mean, we just really have such a great crew.
Yeah,
and they're hard workers, but they're nice people,
and they have fun. Like anytime,
they do.
Anytime I go to the setups, they're always like laughing and like.
Yes, we have a bunch of goofballs though too, which does make it fun. John is probably the best boss.
Yeah.
He's so laid back, and he has so like patience of the saint.
And fun with them too.
Yes. Yeah. He is so much better than me with like showing people and like just kind of teaching the way of doing it. So he'll show you how to do it, and then he'll have you do it with him. Then he'll have you do it on your own. And if there's any questions, everyone feels comfortable asking him, and that's safety is always like number one for us. So I always say, if there's something you don't know how to do, just ask.
Just ask, yeah.
Yeah, we'd rather you be safe than do something you're not comfortable with.
What advice would you give to someone who's looking to start up their own business or their own company?
So research is definitely number one. That's the most important thing. So we talked a little bit about inflatables. There's so many companies that just start up without looking into the laws surrounding the inflatables. So do your research, know your market, make sure that there's a need for what you're providing. That was one of the huge things for us. No other company wanted to come to Ringwood. Nobody wants to drive over Skyline Drive to get here. But we saw that need. We took it really slow. We did our research. We asked for help from people. The state was great. The New Jersey Small Business Development Center was just, they helped us with our marketing. They helped us with our rental agreements, and it's free to little cost. We reached out to other companies and who were doing similar things. First, we were really nervous to reach out to competitors. And so we went a little bit further. So we would reach out to someone, say, in Long Island and say, hey, we're thinking about starting our business. Would you mind talking to us? We also would kind of stalk everyone's Facebook pages and websites and try and get an idea. But now we're part of 2 different organizations that are for the rental industry specifically. So we have our mentors within those groups. And then our local competitors, if you will, have just been so generous with their information, because there really is, we sell out every weekend. And there's plenty of room for other people in this market, as long as you position yourself well.
Correctly,
But never be afraid to ask people, even friends and family, for help. Like one of my aunts is an accountant, and I would ask her, like, how do I do this? And even like with QuickBooks, I would say, I don't know how to do this. Do you know how to do this? And she was just really helpful too. So surround yourself with good people, knowledgeable people who are, so something I'm working on is outsourcing. I'm a bit of a control freak, and I want to outsource social media to someone who's much better at it than I am. So trying to rely on people to do what they do best. So instead of me trying to figure out TikTok, I'll go to someone who knows TikTok. So find an expert in each field and utilize them.
So how do you feel like social media impacts the business? Because social media is like everything now, I feel like.
So I agree. One of the things we do is we really try and keep price reasonable. So we've opted not to have a website right now. We rely on social media to get the word out for us. So we're, as you know, very big into Facebook and Instagram. Our target market is actually more Facebook than Instagram, although that's slowly changing a little bit. Relying on the social media to showcase I think it's like a generational thing too. Like obviously between Facebook, where it's much wordier, than Instagram, where it's more visual. Making sure that you have like great pictures. We spend really $0 on marketing. We don't need to do anything to boost our Facebook ads or marketing ads. We already have great engagement, thanks to you. Also with, like I mentioned before, the support that we receive on like the Ringwood, Wanacue, and of course the Rockland Mom Facebook pages and being recommended through that. The majority of our business is through word of mouth. And we sell out every weekend. So I really contribute that success to Facebook and Instagram primarily. Our TikTok's still getting there.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
today
for having
on
me.
the Lakeland Community Podcast, episode 3. Make sure to check Parties by Porcelli out on all of their social media, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Lakeland Community Podcast. Check out future episodes on the Lakeland Media YouTube page and wherever you find your podcasts.